Hello, good afternoon everyone, and welcome to this webinar introducing T-levels, the top 20 questions that employers should be asking. I say should be asking because actually we've had quite a few questions already through our ICS question emails about T-levels, what they all mean and how they're going to impact on you, and more importantly, how are they going to lead to more and better surveyors. So this webinar will take about half an hour or so. Please feel free to ask some questions in the question pane that you've got on your screen there. Any that I can't answer live, I'll provide written answers to after the event. So we've got a couple of people joining just now, and let's crack on. So the first thing really, if I can get this slide to move forward, there we go, is what are they? Well, as it says on the thing there, the government, as far as they're concerned, they are the most ambitious post-16 education reform since the introduction of A-levels. They've got their own logo, and they're pretty important going forward. The first announced in November 2015, and then in July the government fully announced the details in the Sainsbury's review and confirmed the plan for 15 routeways in the skills plan. RICS have been heavily involved in the production of one of the first T-levels to come forward, which is design, surveying and planning, and that will be available for teaching in September next year. So I'll talk about a bit more about that as we go forward, but basically what are they for? So a T-level is effectively a new A-level, but it's not a replacement for it, it's an alternative to. The A-levels are traditionally the course of choice for those doing classroom-based study, and the apprenticeships for those who are actually very much clued up to what they want to do as a career. The T-levels is another option for those who are vocationally minded but don't want to choose an exact career as they go along. They're aimed at 16 to 18-year-olds, so I say that they're equivalent to the A-levels. They're also equivalent to 3 A-levels, taking about 900 hours per year to teach. They will get UCAS points, so UCAS points are the ones that you get to give you entry to a university, and they've already been given a UCAS tariff. So if you get a distinction at T-level, that's equivalent to 3 A stars, that's 168 UCAS points. If you get a merit, it's 120, and it goes down to pass, etc. So they are significant for UCAS points, and they will be giving you entry to universities, or at least that's the aim. Universities obviously will choose what they use for their own entry tariffs. They've been developed, as I said, in full collaboration with employers, businesses and professional bodies, as I said, with RICS being involved in one of them. The delivery is between a mixture of classroom-based and on-the-job experience, and the main bit of on-the-job experience is the industry placement, which is going to take at least 315 hours, and again I'll talk about that in a little bit more details. At the end of the day, when you get your T-level, you get a certificate which should be recognised nationally by employers, but I think it'll take a little bit of time for all employers to understand what the T-level certificate is and what it means, and how it equates to the A-level certificates that everybody recognises. Whoops, let's click on the next slide if I can get this going. There we go. So, is there a T-level for surveying? Yes, there is, design, surveying and planning, and this is a snapshot of that. It's under the construction pathway. There'll be 4 T-levels under that pathway. So the first one that's released is the one that RICS have been involved in the design of, design, surveying and planning. And that first teacher will be September 2020, and I'll be able to tell you who's going to teach that. The little coloured diagram there shows you the design of the T-level, the technical qualification area with the core and optional competencies, the industrial placement, maths and English are a core part of it. You need your maths and English at level 2, so that GCSE equivalent to pass. And there may be some other requirements set by T-level panels which go over and above that. So maybe the additional maths has been talked about for engineering, and some additional health and safety, obviously, for the construction related ones. So a bit more about the content. Well, as I said, there's a core which you can see all the aspects of their health and safety science, etc., etc., and they will cover most of what's covered in general surveying roles. There's also a simulated project or simulation project, and that's where the T-level students review a brief that's been set by the T-level provider, and then they plan a response, and that should be simulating the real world, but that's not what's in the industry placement. Then there's the specialism, and the T-level students can choose which specialisms they look at the moment. There are 4, although the hazardous materials analysis and surveying, there's work to maybe bring that across the other 3. So it may be 3 with hazardous materials analysis and surveying as part of those other 3. And then of course there's the maths and English and digital skills and the industry placement. So that's the makeup of the T-level, the 900 hours that it's going to take to do that. Where are they going to be taught? Well, there's a list of colleges where they're going to be taught, and I've been approached by many of these colleges already to ask if we can put them in touch with employers to get them to give us access or give them access, the colleges access to you as employers. At the moment, we've taken the view that we don't really want to do that because we don't want to open the floodgates. If you as employers are interested in talking to the providers, then we're absolutely delighted to put you in touch with the relevant people, and we'll be working with all of these providers to make them understand what it means to be a member of RICS, what other support we can give them, and as going forward, there's another 33 providers starting delivery in 2021. We'll be working with all of those going forward, as I say, to show the students the benefits of going forward in the career towards RICS membership, rather than choosing a membership of another body or not choosing membership of a professional body at all. And going forward, as I say, we expect that support to ramp up as delivery gets closer and as the students get closer towards achieving their T-level. So why should you be interested? Well, quite a lot of you are interested. Obviously, we've got quite a few people on the webinar. The main area of interest is obviously in the industry placement. Now, that's a real opportunity for you as an employer to do what could be called an extended interview to young people aged 16 to 18 to give you an advantage in the recruitment market. That's not really what the T-level industry placement is designed for. It's really designed to give the student a taster of the industry, to make them have more information to choose the exact career and to give them a head start in that career. But in reality, obviously, it gives you a chance to be put in touch with those 16 to 18-year-olds and decide whether you want to recruit them going forward, either as an apprentice or as a full-time employee. There's a lot of other benefits as well. Obviously, things around building partnership with local training providers, I think, is really important. Local colleges, because they won't just be doing T-levels; they'll be doing a whole suite of A-levels and B-Techs and HNDs, etc. Again, all really relevant to you. And we found that some of the colleges haven't got great links with our members. We're trying again to put that right, but there are 231 colleges, so we're focusing on the ones that are doing the T-levels and obviously specifically the design, surveying and T-level that we're involved in. So a bit more about the industry placement. This is, as I say, not the main part, but it makes up about 20% of the course. The other 80% obviously will be time spent in the classroom. The industry placement begins with a training provider. The training provider really has to ensure that the students are ready for the industry placement. You don't want people turning up for industry placement who aren't really ready or don't have the mindset to be suitable for a work environment. Remember, these are 16 to 18-year-olds, so they may have other support needs. They may be slightly unused to turning up on time. They may be slightly unused to wearing a suit and being work appropriate, putting their phone away. So there's a lot of work that the training provider will do to get them work ready. And they will then also include a structured work placement with you, a plan of what you're going to do with them, with specific objectives that relate to relate to the T-level they're doing and what you want from them. So in brief, it's all arranged by the provider with agreement by the employer. It doesn't have to be one great big lump of time. It can be blocks or series of blocks, and it can be in partnership with another employer as well. So if you don't have the capacity to take on lots of T-level students. You can go in partnership maybe with your supply chain, and that may also give the student greater visibility of the whole of the industry, which will be a benefit to them, and maybe make them more rounded when they come to apply for a job in the future. As I say, the workplace is really part of a partnership, but the partnership that you have, or the responsibility you have as an employer, obviously you've got to provide them with a safe working environment. These are 16 to 18-year-olds, so there have been lots of discussions about the suitability of them going on to building sites and construction environments, and obviously that's something you'd need to work on to make sure that they are put in appropriate places and they're not put in harm's way, of course. They've got to be able to develop the skills within your organisation that map into the skills that they're required to meet the qualification they're doing. You'll have to put some time in as far as staff support is concerned. They'll need to be supervised, they'll need to be mentored, and again, that all takes time out of your busy working day. They need to have a proper and formal induction, not only to tell them where the toilets are and how lunch break works, etc., but also to explain, especially for the construction of the built environment, all the health and safety requirements and other relevant policies and procedures. You'll also need to be prepared to give formal feedback on their progress against the learning objectives, and that's something that the training provider should be helping you with, to give you an example of what success looks like and to give you an opportunity to benchmark, so you're giving appropriate grading, appropriate indications of progress and success against the agreed learning objectives, and that's something that will come with practice. So it will take a bit of investment from you as an employer to take on the student, and there's discussions as well about whether you have to pay them or not. So I suppose the question is the design surveying planning T-level going to give me future staff? Well, who would you rather employ? Would you rather employ someone who's done 3 A-levels, or would you rather employ someone who's done the design surveying planning T-level and has already maybe had a couple of months working in your organisation? That's a question for you to answer, obviously, but it seems that the people who've had experience may have the advantage in future employment. Over and above everything, you can work with your training provider to help you identify the best student for your placement and organisation. This is in the rules. Every government funded programme has very strict rules around it, and this is written into those rules. So you have absolutely the right as an employer to say, actually, I don't want that person, or I really do want that person, and that's down to you. So as I say, answer the question, well, probably they will give you some staff, especially progressing through to the degree level apprenticeship. So can you employ someone? Yes, you can, but maybe it's better for them to finish the qualification and explore other options. The training provider will be penalised if the young person, the T-level student, doesn't finish the entirety of the qualification. They'll be penalised by funding, and they'll be penalised in their success rates. And if they drop below a minimum success rate, they could lose their contract. So that would be pressuring you as an employer to, of course, work with and approach and give work experience to that young person over and above their T-level, but to employ them when it's finished, and say either put them onto a sponsored degree, an apprenticeship, or an HND or some other form of training going forward. But you can employ them, but I think the best thing would be to wait until they've actually finished. So this diagram is supposed to show the response to the question, how will they lead to RICS membership? Well, it's fairly straightforward. The T-level doesn't actually lead direct to associate level status, but it will progress people onto either the Chartered Surveyor degree apprenticeship or an RICS accredited degree because of the UCAS points that are assigned to it. So there is a direct progression on to MRICS through to one of those 2 routes. Obviously, you don't have to the T-level student doesn't have to choose this route, they can choose many others, but one of the things that RICS are doing obviously is working with the provider and getting access to those students to remind them that RICS and charter surveying is or should be their career of choice. After all, they've chosen a T-level with surveying in the title. One would hope that surveying is where they want to go. And at the moment, all of the partner universities that we're working with have said they will accept the T-level as entry as long as the student achieves a certain basic criteria. So we're hopeful that we'll get access to a lot more members in this way, and also a more diverse membership. T-level students should be different to A-level students, and say that's a great thing to make the industry more diverse. So one question I've been asked quite a lot is how much is it going to cost me to get involved? Well, as I've said on the previous slides about the industrial placement, the work placement, you will have to put some staffing in place, but the other costs are there. There's safeguarding, obviously, which is a big area for under 18s. So your policies and procedures will be checked, and they may carry out a site visit for where the placement's going to be. Now, that may be a bit of a challenge if you expect that placement to move around a little bit, and that may also be a challenge for the student because they may not have all the disposable income to pay for travel to work. They probably won't have a car being 16 to 18. So you need to think about that as to where they're going to put them. You're not required to have DBS checks, but your provider may ask the line manager or supervisor to take a basic DBS check if they feel that it's necessary, and that's probably best practice. As I've said already, students' travel and subsistence costs you will probably be expected to meet, because otherwise it may mean that they can't afford to actually come to the placement. You're not expected to pay salary, but it is an option, and some of the employers I've spoken to are intending to pay an indication of salary, a nominal salary, just to cover their expenses and subsistence costs, etc. You'll obviously need to give the student access to your systems, and that may require some IT sign-off or something. You'll need to give them access to PPI, although those costs may be covered by the provider. They may be able to provide those. You also need to obviously agree the working hours and everything else in them, and as I've said earlier, the support staff that you're going to put in place. So although there is no upfront costs, there is time out of your business to work with any people, young people having work placements, and you need to factor that in to see how many T-level placements you're going to take, as opposed to maybe internships or other form of work placements you get within your organisation. So the other question I'm asked quite a lot is, will they actually work? Well, there's been mixed feedback on these. Any new post-16 education initiative often gets quite a lot of scrutiny, more often because actually there's so many of them, they change quite regularly. So various quotes from MPs about the decision to push ahead with the T-levels at the speed that they were pushed ahead with was against the advice of government officials. T-levels do form part of the solution to what was the skills shortage identified in the overall industrial strategy. And with Brexit getting ever closer, the UK government are very aware that there potentially are some quite big holes in skills availability and across the whole range that we may not be able to access due to the closure of freedom of movement of those skilled workers. So it's really crucial that we get something to plug that gap. The DfE has committed a huge amount of money, hundreds of millions of pounds, to make this work. It's given money to the training providers, and it's given a whole lot of money also to other organisations who are putting support programs in place. The screenshot there is of the Education and Training Foundation's T-level professional development programme, which is several millions of pounds put in place to train college staff in the details of the T-level and how to deliver them. So Are they going to work? Well, the government spent hundreds of millions of pounds making sure that they work. So let's hope so. Although many people have asked me, and somebody's just asked me that exact question, well, are they going to replace BTECs? Are these BTECs dressed up by another name? Well, at the moment, they're not replacing BTECs, but there has been a consultation out in the well, it's actually live at the moment, about higher level technical programs of education, so level 4 and level 5. These are less than degree level, but they're HND level and HNC level. So they may, as time goes by, the government could reduce some of the funding for BTECs. Personally, I feel that would be quite a bold move, considering the large number of people who take BTECs, the great role that BTECs do, and the people who take BTECs who progress to degrees is a significant number. So it would be quite a brave move to turn off the BTECs and HNCs and HNDs, but the government have invested a huge amount of money in T-levels. They will start slowly, say with only 18 or so providers, another 31 coming on stream in 2021, but eventually most providers, most colleges of the 200 or so that there are will be offering a range of T-levels, and so we expect them to last, and I really hope they do, because it's very tiresome having to explain an entirely new system of education to employers, to young people, to their parents, to schools, careers advisors every 3 or 4 years. So let's hope they do make a really good fist of it, and we have, as RICS, invested a lot of time and effort to design the T-level that we think is absolutely suitable for the industry and to meet the skills needs. So last slide for me, and please, if you've got any questions, please type them in the question panels. I've had a couple already, but they're both about the same thing, about the success or failure of them otherwise. Here's some other links that you may find useful. Please get in touch with me through careers@RICS email if you want to ask any more specific questions. There's a lot of information coming out for employers specifically on that second link, giving you lots of guidance in more detail about the T-levels. The guidance can be a little bit dry, so again, any other questions you've got for me to unpick that for you, that would be great. Don't forget, you've got a bit of time. The first teaching is in September 2020 with just a few colleges, and the first placements of those will probably be at the end of that first year. So we're looking at the sort of the summer of 2021 before you'll start actually having 16 to 18-year-old T-level students in your organisation, should you choose. But of course, you need to prepare for those. So let us know. So if there are no other questions, just hold my breath for 30 seconds to get anybody to type in. I shall wish you all a very good afternoon, and thank you very much for listening. We will be sending a recording of this slide presentation, making that available so you can share it with other members of your organisation who didn't log in today. But thank you very, very much. Let's see if I can